Hello everybody, ComputerizedMTG here, and there's my Friday night loot, Friday night magic loot, FNM loot, whatever. I mean, the title of the video is FNM loot, so I guess I should just call that FNM loot. So yeah, FNM loot. Haven't done one of these in a while, just like I haven't done a FNM vlog in a while. And that's because I just haven't gotten a chance to go to Friday Night Magic as of late because of my job. Been working 6/12s, and that sixth day happens to be a Friday night, so which for us is Saturday because of work. Anyways, whole schedule is screwed up because of my job, but yeah. So this past weekend, if you see my FNM vlog, you'll know that my shop, I guess from one of the comments, it's only my shop that's doing it. Might be a local thing, maybe only few select shops are doing it. Might be a wizard approved thing, maybe not, but my shop is doing Friday Night Magic differently. If you want to know what I mean by that, just go ahead and watch the FNM vlog that I uploaded. And yeah, so if you've watched that, you'll know that I went undefeated. You know that I've gotten 4 packs, the 3 that you see laying around there, and the 4th that's already open. I opened the first and I got for, guess, the participation prize because I had no idea that I was going to get more. I just thought it was like, hey everybody, fucking welcome to Friday Night Magic, here's a pack. I don't know, thought that's just something the store was giving out, but turns out there was more. So anyways, so this is what I got in the pack. It's nothing really crazy for most. Oh my god, what is this glare? Killing you all. Probably had to turn away from the screen. Okay, so yeah, there we go. A little bit less glare right here, maybe not. Should have positioned this better. I'm like right below the light. So nothing crazy. Let me get to the uncommons here. So Flame Blade, Adept, Protection of Heckma, Watchers of the Dead, and the rare is Mouth to Feed. So nothing special, but the foil that I got was Vizier of Remedies. And it's funny because this is a 30-cent card, but it's like almost $7 foil. And if you're wondering, like, why is this foil worth a lot for a 30-cent card? Well, if you play Modern, you'll know this little piece, this little lady right here, this human cleric, is part of a combo. Yeah. There's a, what is it, an elf, I think. You put a -1/-1 counter on it, you generate mana of any color, and obviously with the Vizier, that means that you activate the ability, but you don't put the -1/-1 counter on it, so you can create infinite mana. And it's, I think it's played on, whatchamacallit, collected company decks, but yeah. Anyways, let's get on with those other 3 packs and see if I pull anything sweet. And then right after these packs, because someone asked them, because I figured every time I play a new deck at FNM, I'll show a little deck, I guess, of my blue-red deck. So yeah, stay after these packs if you're interested in seeing what deck I was running at FNM. So let's get through these packs. Ooh, the Censor Deliverance is very good common. Okay, Manglehorn. I don't even know if this is any longer a played card. It used to be a sideboard thing. Gale Strike, Seraph of the Suns, and our rare is Neheb the Worthy. Yeah, he's back in our Devastation, and a full art land. That's always nice. Why are these so far up? What am I even doing? It's like a fucking amateur here. It's like I don't even know how to YouTube or something. Anyways, on to the, I guess, what would be the 3rd pack. Oh. Let's get through this. To the uncommons. There it is. Consuming Fervor. Gravedigger. Oh, I really like this new art for Gravedigger. Oketra's Monument, and our rare is Dispossess. Pretty, yeah, that's it, just to focus there. Pretty sweet sideboard card, and that's it, Warrior Token. And on to the last pack. Let's see if we get anything sweet. I think the Vizier of Remedies is pretty cool. I mean, they have legendary creatures, I like those. And full art land. I guess Dispossess is a good sideboard card. I've got some decent stuff. Bond to his monument, Enigma Drake, reduced to Rebel, and our rare is Hapatra, Vizier of Poison. Now this is a pretty sweet card. If you play EDH, she's been kind of like the hot thing since Summon Ket was released. Pretty sweet commander, pretty sweet card in general. I really wish she would see more standard play, but I guess there's not really much support for her right now, if there will ever be. But yeah, pretty sweet card. And we get nothing else. So overall, I think it's a pretty decent loot, as the name of the video goes. Let's focus in. So yeah, we got Hapatra, Dispossess, Neheb, Full Art Land, Full Vizier, and Mouth to Feed. So yeah, I think it got some pretty sweet stuff. And yeah, so that's it for the loot. And yeah, keep watching if you want to see what blue-red control deck I've been running. Alright, so here we are with this small deck. Normally with the other couple of ones I did, it was either on Magic the Gathering Online, so you could see the whole list, or the ones that I did on paper, they were kind of laid out all across the playmat. But because I chose a very bad location in my room, instead of moving everything, I just kind of lowered the camera, angled it this way so there is no glare, and I guess this gives me also a chance to kind of talk about the cards as I show them one by one. So let's start with the basic of a deck, and that is the land base. Land base is nothing too fancy here. We have 4 Spirebluff Canal, just gotta hit those double colors. Then we have 3 Wandering Fumarole. That's the original list is actually a GP list. I made very small variation to it, and I'm kind of still changing it as like the meta slowly evolves, especially after the banning. The original list ran 4. I feel like 4 is sometimes too clunky. 3 Fumaroles work well enough. More often than not, I only animate 1, sometimes 2. So these are like my backup win condition anyways, if either I don't draw into my Gearhulks or my Gearhulks get picked off. So not a big fan of running 4, but if a pro player ran 4, that means they work, so it's really up to choice. But I'm only really running 3. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic mountains. Most of our stuff is blue. We need mountains, obviously, to hit early removal and whatnot, but most of our stuff is blue, so only 5 basics. And here we have 4 Aether Hubs. They help with Harness Lightning. They help color fix early. And this is actually something I forgot to show during the FNM Loot portion before this deck. And this is the promo that I mentioned that I got in my FNM vlog. If you want to compare the artwork, the promo Aether Hub is just absolutely beautiful. It just looks amazing. I'm really glad when they give promos that are actually playable cards and not just random, oh, here it goes, card nobody cares about. But yeah, this is Aether Hub is a highly played card, so it's kind of nice to get a really cool promo out of it. So yeah, 4 Aether Hubs helps color fix and whatnot. And last we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 basic islands. Again, just basic lands, nothing fancy. Yeah, so I think that is a total of 25 lands. Pretty sure it's 25 lands. So yeah, that's the land base. Let's take a look at the the rest of the main deck. So let's start off with the counter magic. It's kind of like the staple of control, and it's kind of what keeps us safe and helps us save our removal for the bigger stuff. But yeah, so counter magic, we have 4 copies of Censor. Censor is very underrated. A lot of people still underrate this card, even though it's performed amazingly. A lot of people see that 1 right there, and they're like, oh man, everybody can pay 1. Well, you have no idea how many times, both online and on paper, when I play with Censor, I force my opponent to play their stuff 1 turn late because they have to play around Censor, because every blue deck runs Censor. Just the fact that your opponent knows that you have Censor in your deck makes them play stuff a turn late. Like when I played the last match against the Red Eldrazi deck, he played his 2-drop on turn 3, his 3-drop on turn 4, simply because he knew I may have had a Censor.
So my Censor became useless. Or did it? Well, I can cycle it. So once your opponent is playing around Censor and you can no longer counter stuff with it, you can now just cycle it and replace it with something else. So Censor is a very good card. I would always run a playset of it. It's amazing. Hit stuff on curve, forces your opponent to play stuff late, and it draws you cards when you don't need a counter anymore. Then we have 3 Disallows. Disallow is just obviously a great counter. It hits spells, it hits abilities, it hits triggered and activated abilities. So spells and abilities, it's good. I mean, somebody goes, ha, Liliana Emblem, you go, nope. So you can kind of stomp planeswalkers and whatnot, especially when they try to ult or throw out an emblem, even if they resolve. So this helps you with things that resolve that you otherwise didn't want to. Again, like something like Liliana, if you didn't have a counter when she was alive and somebody tries to pop her emblem off. I'm talking about The Last Hope, by the way. You pop this, and it's always funny to see people use this. But yeah, so Disallow, great counter spell, just the catch-all answer. It's pretty much, your strictly better version of negate. Cancel. If it would exile, it would be like just amazing. But oh well. Then we have 2 Essence Scatters. I mean, decks are obviously very creature heavy as of late, so. Essence Scatter is just great, hits a lot of targets. It's great against mid-range where near removal is not so great anymore. So Essence Scatter is a great counter spell. Then you have 3 copies of Negate. What can I say? Negate is just an amazing card. I mean, it hits a ton of things. May not be that good that now that Marvel Aetherworks is out, but yeah, I still cast Negate quite a lot in the first game before sideboard. After sideboard, especially against zombies and Eldrazi, I think I took out 1 or 2 copies of it to make space for like things like Essence Scatter, where creature heavy decks Essence Scatter is a little bit better, or just more removal overall. But yeah, Negate's still an amazing card. Then I have 1 copy of Summary DIsmissal in the main. This is just kind of a catch-all answer. Again, there's some spells that you kind of can't counter. They just kind of answer stuff. Again, sort of like, Disallow. An ability goes off, you can just cast this, This also helps you hit things with hexproof. So if you're playing against the Mirror and they have the Sphinx of the Final Ward, you can cast this and exile it. So this gets around things that cannot be countered. This gets around countering abilities, etc., etc. So great one of. I would really not run more than 1. I mean, if your meta has a bunch of Ulamogs and stuff, I guess running 1 more in the sideboard would be good. But in the main board, it's more than 1 is kind of silly. Even 1 is a little bit. Man, this could just be another Disallow, to be honest. But yeah, Summary DIsmissal is in here because control decks are a thing at my store, and I know they're running Sphinx of the Final Ward. So not only was it in the original list, but it works in my own meta. So yeah. Now let's move on to the removal. Just hard cast removal. We have 4 copies of Magma Spray, and actually, no, we don't. Pretty sure this is supposed to be in the sideboard. I'll double check after I go off with the list, but I'm pretty sure I only run 3 copies of Magmas. I don't know why that was in here. I'm pretty sure I only run 3 copies of Magma Spray in the main board. This catches almost every creature played in Standard right now. I mean, look at Mardu Vehicles. It kills a ton of things. Look at Zombies. Kills a ton of things. So a lot of the aggressive decks right now get picked off my Magma Spray, and it also exiles. So, Dread Wanderer, Scrap Heap Scrounger, etc., etc. All those cards that, would otherwise be alive and be recurred from the graveyard and whatnot, they get exiled. You don't have to deal with them anymore. This is also kind of good to combo if you really need to exile something that's more than 2 toughness with other removal that you have in the deck. So Magma Spray is just efficient, just 1 mana, gets rid of a ton of creatures, so why not run it? Then we have one of the best removals in Standard right now, especially for blue-red decks. Harness Lightning is just amazing. We're running a full playset. This card is just absurd. It gets support both from other Harness Lightnings. If you kill something with 1 toughness, for example, you have 2 energy left over, so it kind of can feed the other Harness Lightnings. And Glimmer of Genius also feeds you energy, as well as your Aether Hubs if you don't really need to use them for mana fixing. So Harness Lightning, an absurdly good removal. There's a reason, I don't know if the price went down on this card, but there was a reason why this card was like $2 each for a little bit. This card is really good. And then the only board wipe in the deck is Sweltering Suns. It gets the job done. Unfortunately, Red-Blue doesn't really have too many board wipes, and Sweltering Suns is like the only one. Radiant Flames is the other one. A lot of people run Radiant Flames over Sweltering Suns sometimes. They feel like the double red might cost them to not be able to deal the 3 damage efficiently sometimes. I feel like it's fine, especially in a deck like this. You can always hit double red. If you're not hitting double red, you're having other issues. And as always, Cycle is amazing. If you're playing against mid-range and, you know, you're kind of in the mid to late game, dealing the 3 damage isn't enough, you can always cycle it away, draw cards. So cards like this that are not only good on their own, but that are good with Cycle, are almost an auto-include in decks that can run them. All right, now that we're done with the removal of the deck, let's move on to what helps us get to the removal. So we have 2 copies of Anticipate. Anticipate is a great card. I really wish it was a little bit more efficient. In the other decks, I always run at least 3 copies, 3 to 4, depending on how fast the deck is. But I feel like 2 copies is kind of like a sweet spot. I feel like you should always have Anticipate. Early game, it helps you, you know, smooth out your draws. It helps you hit those lands, you know. It allows you to keep, like, kind of questionable hands. So if you have 2 lands, you're like, man, I have a bunch of removal. I have Sweltering Suns, but I only have 2 lands. Should I keep? If you have an Anticipate, I would almost always keep. I mean, there's times where you don't want to, but Anticipate allows you to keep, you know, 2 landers, and it'll help you hit that 3rd land relatively fast. In late game, it helps you kind of pick out the piece that you need for the situation, whether it's removal or a Gearhulk or whatever. So Anticipate is a really, really great card. This is another one that's kind of like underrated by some people, but I like it. Then, of course, we have like the best draw spell in Standard right now. Glimmer of Genius, just an absurdly good card. I mean, 4 mana instant speed to scry 2, draw 2, and it gives you energy. Just an overall good card. Any blue deck that needs draws is just running Glimmer, or if not Anticipator or Hieroglyphic Illumination. But Glimmer is just a staple blue card in Standard right now. So really, really good. So, of course, control deck, we need draws. So running 4 of them. Not much else to say. Then we have 1 copy of Hieroglyphic Illumination. This is kind of acting as a 5th Glimmer, in the sense that it is 4 mana and it does draw you 2 cards. You don't get the scry, but if you have this in your opening hand, you're more likely to keep than Glimmer. If you have Glimmer in your opening hand and you're stuck on, like, say, 2 lands in your opening hand, you don't want to keep Glimmer. Yeah, you don't want to get baited by Glimmer. But if I hit 4 lands, but if you don't hit 4 lands on a curve, then you're kind of screwed. This allows you to keep questionable hands, quote unquote. Obviously, you should kind of evaluate that by yourself. You should never keep questionable hands, but it is what it is. This is pretty good. You can cycle it, so you can cycle instant speed. So just pay 1, draw a card. It's okay to do that. A lot of people shy away from doing that with Hieroglyphic Illumination. They want to hit that 4th land. They want to draw the 2 cards. But sometimes it's just better to just pitch this to the cycle ability and draw a card. So it's just kind of like a filler just to draw more. This could actually be a pull from tomorrow, which is something that you'll notice. I have no pull from tomorrows in this deck, and I feel like the deck works just fine without it. I might play with removing 1 Glimmer for 1 pull here soon to see kind of how it works, or I might have 1 pull in the side to kind of go against control. You know, when you go against control, you pull out removal, you always want to bring in some card advantage. So yeah, I don't have pull from tomorrow, so I have Hieroglyphic Illumination, Anticipating Glimmer. I feel like it's working fine right now. I feel like I don't need pull from tomorrow, but it's still a really great card, so if you want to play with it, feel free. Now, the win conditions, you know, you're seeing a bunch of removal, you're seeing a bunch of counter, you're seeing a bunch of draw, but what actually wins me the game? So, of course, you've already seen the Wandering Fumaroles. Those can always win the game. But here we have, like, the all-star of the deck. It's just an amazing card. This is, like, literally one of the cards that makes control, I feel, alongside Glimmer. Everything in my deck can be recurred with Gearhulk, short of Sweltering Suns and, of course, the next win con that I'll show, and lands. but everything in the deck is an instant speed, and that is because of Torrential Gearhulk. This is an absurdly good card. Once you hit 6 mana, your opponent has to respect the fact that you may have a Gearhulk and that anything in your graveyard is now part of your hand. So this is a really good card. If you're running blue and you're not running Gearhulk, I know it has a high cost that you should... Actually, I shouldn't say if you're running blue. If you're running control and you're running blue in your control deck, you should... You really need to get a place, at least 3. You can get by with 3 Gearhulks and have like 1 of something else, but you should at least have 3 Gearhulks in your deck. This card is absurdly good. It'll win you games alone. Actually, most of the games I win is with Gearhulks. And then we have at last a single of Sphinx of the Final Word. This card is just good. I would not run more than 1. I mean, it's cool that it's not a legendary, so you can't have more than 1 on the field, but this is just kind of here against the control mirrors. Again, against control. Control doesn't have a lot of answers to this. Literally, I think Summary DIsmissal is like the only thing that can deal with it. And of course, board wipes once it hits the field. But you're talking about your opponent either casting 2 Sweltering Suns. You know, and I don't really see too many whiteboard wipes, you know. Just, so you're forcing your opponent, because blue-red is like the control deck of the format right now. There's not a lot of like blue-white, there's not a lot of Esper, there's not a lot of, you know, other X-white control decks where they can cast Fumigate, although I do see some like blue-white flash decks running Fumigate, whatnot, but yeah, so this is just a hard threat to get rid of. It has hexproof, it can't be countered, it makes your instant sorceries unable to be countered by spells or abilities, so great card. So that's it for the main board. Now I'm going to hop over to the sideboard, and I'm going to double check whether or not this Magma Spray is supposed to be in the main or the side. This has a different artwork for a reason, so I can pick it off easily and put it back in the sideboard. So that's why I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be in the sideboard, hence the different artwork. That's just something I do. I like to do sometimes, is just have different artwork for cards in my sideboard so I can easily pick them out. I'm pretty sure my opponent won't really pick that off. I know I have different artworks for sideboard cards. I'm pretty sure my opponent doesn't know I do that. But anyways, let's hop on to the sideboard. Alright, onto the sideboard. So yes, I was correct. Magma Spray was in the sideboard. I don't know how it ended back up into the main deck. But yeah, Magma Spray is on the sideboard. So starting off, 1 copy of Magma Spray. Again, if you're against Winnie decks, maybe you don't need Negate, maybe you don't need an Essence Scatter, and just Magma Spray is more efficient. So you take out some, you know, things like Disallow if you have to. You take out, you know, just removal and counter magic that isn't as efficient against faster decks, and you just bring out Magma Spray. Also, if you need to make sure stuff stays out of the graveyard, you need to exile it, Magma Spray obviously does that. Then we have 1 copy here of Essence Scatter. This is good to bring in against mid-range, where you would either have to build up Harness Lightning to bigger amounts in order to hit bigger threats. I mean, if a Gearhulk hits the floor, you're going to need to either have some energy built up, which this deck actually does relatively well. But if you don't have energy built up, your Harness Lightning is just not going to do it, so Essence Scatter does it. So this is good against mid-range. This is good against like creature-heavy decks, pretty much. Like if you're running against like green-white humans where they barely have any like non-creature spells, it's better to have Essence Scatter than say a Negate or a Disallow. But obviously you have to judge depending on what you're facing against. But yeah, Essence Scatter great against mid-range decks. Then we have 1 Sweltering Suns on the side. This is primarily really against zombies and whatnot. Any deck really that wants to flood the board with a bunch of tokens and creatures. So Sweltering Suns helps us keep the board clear. 3 damage seems to do the job most of the time. So Sweltering Suns is like the premier red board wipe right now. It's a great, great card. And again, you don't need it. You can cycle it and replace it. Then we have, what is it, 3? Yes. 3 copies of Thing in the Ice. Some people like to run 4. I feel like 3 is enough. You're not really going to get to flip too many of these. And honestly, when you flip 1, you almost always win. That's not always the case. I mean, the Thing in the Ice can still be killed. It still has to survive. Also, running too many copies of it is not that good. If you're against a black deck, they assume that you're going to sideboard in Thing in the Ice if it's like an aggressive deck. Oops, hitting the tripod here. Or if after game 2 they see you bring a Thing in the Ice and you keep it in, their Fatal Push is going to hit you hard. All they have to do is just kind of either kill it right away or just wait until the last trigger goes off and kill it, you know, put Fatal Push in the stack and get rid of it. So Thing in the Ice is very, even after it flips, you know, there's plenty of destroy creatures, you know, Unlicensed Disintegration being one of the other, like, quote-unquote premier removals of Standard right now. It's just something you have to face with. So I feel like 3 is enough. You can run 4. I see a lot of decks also sometimes run Fevered Visions instead of Thing in the Ice if control is heavy in your meta. Fever Visions is amazing. It's also a card that I've been trying to almost include in the sideboard, but I'm still kind of on the fence about it. So some people run 3 Things in the Ice, some people run 4 Things in the Ice, or some people run both Thing in the Ice and Fever Vision, or some people just run Fever Vision instead. Yeah, I have Thing in the Ice to deal with primarily mid-range. It's good against early game creature, like very aggressive fast decks too, because obviously it's a 0/4 body, pretty much blocks anything. But against mid-range too, you throw it out and you bounce everything. I mean, they're going to have a lot of mana investment on those creatures, so before they can flood the board again, it's going to take a couple turns. Meanwhile, you can just swing in with a big old 9, or I mean, my bad, not 9-8, 7-8. 7-8? Yeah, 7-8. So, Thing in the Ice, good card. Jace is one of the cards that differs from the original list that I built the deck around of. Jace is here against control, against mid-range. It helps with the grindy game. You know, the Scry 1 draw card is really good. We can protect them somewhat decently. That's why I only have 1 of. Nah, I could have put 2 in, but I feel like 1 is fine to kind of get through the grinding game. You can throw him down. He protects himself. There's a big threat on the board. Just bounce it. And then the Scry 1 draw card is great. And of course, if you hit that -8, you kind of lock the game down and kind of win. A lot of people just can't play around the Zolt. So that's that. Then we have 3 copies of DIspel. This is against burn decks. This is, you know, not many of them, but, you know, they are there. This is against burn decks. This is against, this is actually good against red-green pummeler. They have a lot of pump spells, so this is good to get rid of them. And obviously this is good against control mirrors. You want to win the counter war. There's nothing like a 1 mana, get rid of your counter. My counter is your threat now. So this is good against several decks, primarily against control, but there's other cases where you may want to bring in a Dispel. So I have 3 copies of it. Then we have 1 Chandra. Chandra Torch of Defiance is great. She's pretty good against mid-range. She's also good against control. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we take out against control, like 3 Magma Sprays on the board don't do anything. Sweltering Suns likely doesn't do anything unless it's a control deck that like throws tokens on the ground. So Chandra Torch of Defiance against mid-range sometimes, but primarily against control she's great. Gives you card advantage, burns your opponent down, and, you know, gives you additional mana if you need to, like, quote-unquote ramp up into stuff. You know, play a Gearhulk a turn early. That's pretty great. I mean, turn 5 Gearhulk, you know, have a mana, burn something. I don't know. But anyways, Chandra is pretty good. Her ult can win you the game. It's hard to keep her around for the ult, but if you land the ult, you know, with all your draw spells and removal and counters, it makes your opponent, you know, really, 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 really make sure that what they cast is game changing, because otherwise if they cast something gets counter, not only do they get their threat blown up, but they also take 5 to the dome, and you can also blow up their big creatures if they do resolve. You know, you can go Magma Spray, deal 2 damage, then redirect that 5 damage onto a creature. That's essentially 7 damage for 1 mana. So she's pretty good, primarily against mid-range and control. Dragon Master Outcast. This is something that I like to bring in sometimes against mid-range decks. If, you know, just play it late game when they kind of either sideboarded out all of their removal and brought in some stuff. Against control, it's okay. They're not really, some decks don't expect a Dragon Master Outcast, so they're not going to keep around, they're not going to keep around their more efficient removal, like Magma Sprays and whatnot. They're going to keep the Harness Lightning, their hard, you know, bigger hard removals. And, you know, if they waste a couple of removal spells on this and a dragon or whatever, and that just means your Gearhulk has a higher chance to survive. But yeah, this is good against control. This is good against mid-range. And if you're able to stay alive early game against aggro decks, this can also be pretty decent. Most aggro decks can't really deal with multiples or even just a single 5/5 dragon, so it's pretty good. I also threw in a Confiscation Coup. This is also another card that differs from the original deck list. Honestly, I don't know. I just need a filler card. I forgot what I was missing. But I needed a filler card, and I figured, why not? Let's try out Confiscation Coup. I never really got a chance to try it out. But yeah, I feel like if you're playing against like a Super Friends deck or whatever, you're going to be building up energy. So being able to take control of their Planeswalker or even something like Ulamog, it's not that hard to actually rack up 10 energy in this deck. So being able to take control of something like Ulamog or the Planeswalker, it's just a fun card to play. So there will be the time where I cast this and it wins me the game, but as of right now, I haven't gotten a chance to play with it yet. But I feel like it can be of some use. I have seen it in some sideboards, so I figured I would try it out on mine. And then to finish off the sideboard here, we have 2 Kefnet the Mindful. This is just good against mid-range decks, big creatures. If you can keep 7 cards in your hand, this is just like a blocker. Now you don't need to remove everything. You can just keep cards in hand. And obviously later in the game, 4 mana, draw a card. It's good. So this guy is not impossible to remove, but if you're able to activate him, Indestructible is definitely something that helps them stay alive, and a 5/5 flyer is really good at that. So 3 mana is efficient. Just throw him out. Normally if you're playing control, you want to keep cards in hand. So being able to put this out on turn 3, you'll almost it's possible to have this guy be active the next turn over. So yeah, it's a lot easier to get this guy active than most people think in a control deck. So yeah, that's it for the sideboard. So if you like the deck, let me know. Let me know if this helped you out. Let me know if you like this format. I can always just go back to placing the cards on the floor, but I feel like this might be a little bit better. It allows me a chance to kind of like better talk about the card and kind of focus on that card instead of everything else. So yeah, are you running blue-red control? You know, what's different from your deck than my deck? Let me know. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. As always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter. And other than that, I hope you guys had fun at Friday Night Magic this past weekend. And I hope you had a great and wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you all in the next video.